Hello out there. I am back yet again with some more Halloween Horror Nights business to attend to. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Carson. I love all things horror, horror books, horror movies, horror shows, and most of all, Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Orlando. So the first part you're going to see in this video is actually some footage that I took when I went with my parents. I went to the event 2 nights this year. The first night I went with friends. I've already got that video of all of the footage that I took from that night up on my channel. And then I was able to go back with my parents on closing weekend. And when I sat down to look at the videos that I had taken, I realized that there was no like, woo, we're going to Horror Nights. None of that. It literally just begins with us on the bus. So it's just a little bit abrupt. I didn't film a ton that night. We were too busy having so much fun. And we also went to Howl-O-Scream the very next night in SeaWorld that day. And I did not record any of that at all. I was just trying to enjoy our family trip. This was really special. This was my dad's first time back at Horror Nights since 2011. That's the only other time he's been to the event. And this was my mom's first time back in 2 years. She had been going ever since 2014 or so with me, but took last year off and we're back at it again. So I was really excited to be able to share this with them. We had an awesome time. So I'll let you guys take a look at what I recorded with them. Also, side note, anytime that my dad is in any of these videos, he is just kind of like smiling. I'm pretty sure he didn't realize I was taking video and thought that I was taking a picture and was smiling for the picture. So we'll just forgive him for just kind of standing there in the background and smiling a lot. Oh, we're on the bus. Bus life. Moving sidewalk, and my parents are here. They're not paying attention to me, but they're here. So, we decided to pray at Margaritaville. Margaritas for Jimmy. Round 2 begins with my parents. No, that is not the man from Jurassic Park. That is my dad. My dad's first time in the gates at Horror Nights since 2011. My mom's first time in 2 years. I'm gonna cry, y'all. It's sinister and surreal. I didn't come in this way last time, so I didn't get to see them.
Such an array of monsters to delight you within the fog. Come, meet every one of them, and while you're at it, come meet your untimely fate. Well, my
first house. Oh my god, I'm sweaty. First house is Ghostbusters. Are y'all excited? Yeah. Are you afraid of ghosts? No? Yo, Insidious kicked my behind tonight. I'm so tired. That was the longest house. That took 45 minutes to walk through it tonight. Jesus Christ. The torture fair. Oh, are they torturing? Oh no. Oh no. Is that bad? All right, this is my last house I have not done yet. Bloodlines. Have I mentioned I hate the setup back here? I don't know what it is. I don't know, I think I was just overwhelmed when I was back here last time. There was too much going on. But yeah, I typically like the Universal Monster houses, so we'll see. Goblins, I love you. Oh god, I lost my parents. Things. They're everywhere. Remember the Yeti? Slaughter Cinema fans, make some noise. Would you mind sharing for the camera what your favorite house has been so far?
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters? What's your favorite? It's not a picture. You don't know, but which ones did you like?
I don't know. All of them so far.
Okay. Does this remind you of Chunchula? More Louisiana. If I run into somebody, I genuinely apologize. I can't see anything. Okay, now I can. Zombie, 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 in your head. Oh Lord, there's one over here. The Roogaroo. Hello. Oh my gosh. Ah! Oh, gross. Just act casual, guys. Okay. Just act cool. Just act cool. Ooh. There's so many of them. Oh my god. So many people.
You must be a tormentor within your own realm, sending those bugs after others. Delightful indeed.
Ah yes, my favorite part of Wicked, the part where you can hear chainsaws in the background. And we closed out with A Quiet Place, which is what I started this whole experience with, so that was really exciting. We were also liars. We were like, no, we're gonna go without Express, and then we bought Express and did 9 out of the 10 houses. We chose not to do the last one for reasons that maybe I'll talk about. I don't know. All right, that is a wrap. Halloween Horror Nights 2024, Parents Edition, Part 2. Whew, my feet hurt, y'all. And there you have it. That was a look at our night at Halloween Horror Nights. So now I have to rank these houses. And I know that I say this every year, that it is hard to rank these houses, but I don't think that there has ever been so much of a debate or so much of a discussion after the fact, particularly with my parents. I know my friends and I, the night I went with them, we kind of had a pretty solid idea of where everything was going to land. But then going with my parents and hearing their input on it as well was kind of enlightening, eye-opening. It kind of challenged some of the rankings that I had previous. And I knew my list was probably going to change after I went back the second night and got to go through some of these houses again. But this was hard. I'm not kidding. The day after I went with my parents, we got up and went to SeaWorld for part of the day the next day and then did Howl-O-Scream that night. But we spent at least an hour that morning, instead of like actually getting ready for the day, talking about our rankings, talking about our thoughts. Then while we were waiting in one of the restaurants in the holding area at SeaWorld that night for Howl-O-Scream to start, we spent another good like hour going over our rankings. And I have never changed my list so much ever in my history of coming to this event. For me, like if I actually sit down and look at it for any other amount of time, I would change my mind again, I'm sure. Like I have to just like put things where they are now and leave it at that. So without further ado, here are my rankings. So this goes without saying, again, taste is subjective. This is just my opinion. I didn't think there were any truly bad houses this year. And I think every cast member, anybody involved in this process, absolutely killed it this year. The actors were bringing their A game. They brought the energy, the scenic design, costume, makeup, lighting, all of that you've come to expect from Horror Nights was top notch. So this in no way is intended to insult or demean the efforts of anybody involved. This is just my opinion. So at number 10, I put Triplets of Terror. Something had to be last. This was just kind of the one that ended up down there. I only went through this house one time. Let me start with what I liked about this house. I think one of my favorite things about it was that after that introduction scene, you got to go into that little transitional area that was like a true crime podcast setup. I absolutely loved that because as someone that listens to true crime podcasts, I walked in, I immediately knew what was up. I thought that was such a clever way to tie in, you know, kind of that obsession that society seems to have with true crime now. This was a very high energy, very intense house, one of the gorier ones this year, which I didn't mind. But I do have to say, I didn't go through it with my parents because I did tell them, I warned them ahead of like possibly going in this one. I told them, you know, there is a dead dog in here, and you do hear like sad dog noises, and they didn't want to go in there because that's kind of a sensitive thing for them. They're big animal lovers, and I know that that might be something that they weren't really comfortable with and wouldn't like seeing, so they did decide that they wanted to pass on that house. This was one that also ended up at the bottom of my husband's list because of the dog in there. And I know we've seen a lot of violent, graphic things at the event before, but we were walking through the house and he saw the dog and he went, well, this one's at the bottom of my list. He was so upset. Like, not actually upset. We know it's pretend and fake, but that was kind of like a for some of the people there. Other than that, though, there wasn't anything in here that like really bothered me, but it was one that I enjoyed. I found it fun, but in the grand scheme of what we have this year, this one had to go at the bottom for me. So speaking of sensitive subjects, let's talk about what I've put in number 9, monstruos. I think I'm saying it right now. I've said monstrous, I've said monsteros. I don't know what it was about this. It seemed like the letters kept jumping around for me and I wasn't looking at it correctly. I'm pretty sure it's monstruos. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like such an idiot. But this one, okay. So I loved the concept of this. Again, it felt similar to like when we've had La Llorona and the Chupacabra house recently. I love the idea of these folklore monsters from other cultures, and I do hope to see more of that at the event. I loved the character of Death kind of narrating, and you would hear his voice and he'd pop up throughout the house. Loved him. I thought he was one of the highlight characters from the year. The thing that was off-putting about this house to me was the dead babies. I knew going into it because my friends that I was going with the first night that I went, the night I went with my husband and my friends, they had done a RIP tour the weekend prior. They'd been in the houses and they didn't want to give me spoilers or tell me much about it, but I kind of heard them talking about like how this one was one that they kind of just didn't really care that much for. And I was asking them, kind of like pushing the issue of like, well, why didn't you like it? And they finally told me, well, there's dead babies in this one. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I can see why that would be disturbing. So then we go into the house and then I'm like, oh, okay. So there's dead babies in here. And it was really kind of off-putting for me. And I know I don't even want to get into the full conversation about this because, you know, I've been coming to horror nights for like 15 years at this point. And I remember back in the day, like the conversation surrounding, you know, what is and is not appropriate. And, you know, you sign up for a horror themed event, you're going to see horrifying, gory things. Like I just said, the dog and Triplets of Terror might be off-putting for some people. And there are some things that people are sensitive to. I remember back in the day when people were upset and potentially like at the idea of potentially like triggering someone from the original Nightingale's house that was set in the trenches of the war and you could hear the sounds of battle. You know, there's always going to be that conversation surrounding like what is and isn't appropriate. And I know that when you sign up to go to a horror event, you are subjecting yourself to potentially seeing some horrifying things. And, you know, a lot of the time I can tell myself like, this is fictional, it's pretend. And while I know that what was being portrayed in this house this year was also pretend, it was just one of those things that kind of went like, to me, I didn't really like it. But that is just my opinion. I liked the rest of the creatures that were in this house. The El Suban, oh my God, was so intense. The one that like popped around the corner in the bar scared me. Like after I knew he was there and went through this house again, I still got scared. Like the energy was very, very intense in this house. So I did really like it because of that. But again, just because of that particular scene, I would have to put it at number 9. Number 8, Major Sweets Candy Factory. And yes, that means that my bottom 3 houses this year are all originals, which seems crazy and not like me at all. And I enjoyed something about all of these houses. I do need to reiterate that, but this is just how the list fell into place. I liked this idea because I do always kind of love when we bring back a scare zone and turn it into a house. I was a big fan of Saws and Steam. I was a Saws and Steam truther back in 2011. Even though a lot of people didn't like that house, they thought the scare zone was better. I digress. I thought this was a fun way to bring back some of the characters that we remembered from a couple years ago. I was a little iffy going into this one. I don't have the best memories of the year that we had the scare zone of Major Suites, but I went in with an open mind. And I have to say that as somebody that works with children, the concept of this house being you're on a field trip going to the factory and then the children are going rogue and turning murderous, like, that's just a day in my life. So did I find it scary? No, but I really liked the plot of it. I loved the set design. I do think that this is the best use of this particular space, the Fast and Furious extended queue. This is my favorite of the houses that have been in that space, just because I think it was the one that felt the most immersive. I like the little rats hidden throughout. One of my friends that had been on the tour was kind of pointing them out to me as we went through the first time. So this was fun. This was campy. Didn't think it was all that scary. Again, like kids screaming in my face, like, okay, I just feel like I'm at work right now. But it was a really fun house. I did enjoy it. Number 7, A Quiet Place. So once again, my least anticipated house has not ended up in the bottom spot for me. Imagine that. I have to say, I still have no interest in watching the movies. I don't think I'd really enjoy them, but I did really like the house. Oh my gosh, the animatronics, puppets, all of that. That was really, really well done. This was the first house I went through this season, and the beginning was so dark that I know I missed a lot of it the first time. I really enjoyed what I saw, but I'm glad I got to go back through it again and kind of appreciate the things that I missed the first time. In particular, that scene that looked like a flooded basement, I think it was supposed to be, that creature that was like rising out of the water. I caught that when I went through it again, and that was possibly one of the creepiest things that I saw at the event this year. Loved the boat scene. The scenic design for that was amazing. The way it looked like it was moving a little bit. I'm always blown away by those really like open feeling sets that really do feel like they transport you to a specific location. But this house really did surprise me, even though it was a subject matter, a movie, an IP that I wasn't all that interested in. I think what they did with it, just knowing what I know on a limited kind of basis about the movie series, I do think that they did a really good job with this one. People might be mad at me for this one, but whatever. Number 6, I'm going to put Insidious. I have to say I really liked this house. I did really like it. I saw a lot of hype online about this house, so I was excited to go in it. I know people think that it was the scariest one this year, and I do think objectively, yes, this was the one that would be the scariest. But I've been going for so long that I don't get scared in the way that like maybe first timers or people that don't go as often do. I'm not trying to say that sounds so stupid and pretentious. I'm not trying to say like I'm too good to be scared, but you do get desensitized after time. But I felt creeped out and uncomfortable and kind of like in houses before, and I certainly felt that here, but I wasn't one of those people that thought that like it was so scary that I was going to fall to the ground and crawl out of the house or whatever. I saw a lot of people saying that they were scared out of their minds, and that's great. I'm glad we had a house that was like that for people this year. This house felt really, really long. I think it was one of the longer ones this year. I swear to you, when I took my parents through this one, it felt like it took us 45 minutes to walk through this house. It kicked my behind, that second run I had when I went with my parents. Oh my gosh, we were about, I don't know, maybe halfway through, and it felt like time wasn't real. And I thought, oh my God, we haven't even made it to the red curtain hallway yet. How long is this house? And it just felt like every actor was getting in our faces. So I was kind of like, ugh. I got whipped in the face by the curtains in the red curtain hallway that second time through. I'm not mad about it. I just thought it was funny that I was being literally attacked by the set pieces. But I like this one. And I'm saying that as somebody that really didn't like the first movie. I've always thought that always being 2 times, the houses that they've done at Horror Nights, the 2 times they've done Insidious, I have enjoyed better than I enjoyed watching the first movie. So I think that is a huge compliment for this house. They really brought the energy and the intensity that you should have expected from this property. Number 5, I'm going to put museum here. Again, I'm going to stick to what I said originally and not move things around, but I don't know, I could make a case for any of them from here on out being number 1. I saw a lot of kind of negative things about this one online going through. A lot of people didn't connect with this one, it seems like, and that's fine. Taste is subjective, but man, did I ever love this one. And let me explain why. Okay, so a while back, my husband and I we were talking about people that use like the crystals and everything, and we were researching because we didn't know a lot about it. Like how do crystals work for people that believe in crystals, and like we looked up the process of like cleansing them and putting them underneath the moon and all of that, and we were like, okay, that's all well and good, but are there any rocks that are evil? So one night we were sitting on the couch and I literally Googled, can rocks be evil? Just because I thought it would be funny to see what came up. And I did find like there's supposedly this evil rock in like Japan or something. I don't know. But it was just this tangent we got off on one night. And then when I read the house description of this, of course I had to tell him like, one of the houses at Horror Nights this year is about a bad rock. And man, what a bad rock the rotting stone was. This was one, and this was my parents' problem with it too. When we walked through, you almost wanted to stop and like see the exhibits because it felt like you were really in a museum. I really loved that about this one. That was so fun. And it's an idea that, at least in the years I've been going to the event, there hasn't really been anything like that. So it was awesome to see. Favorite room in this one was definitely the Viking ship section. That was really cool. Just everything about this one came together in a way that worked for me. HHN Bear was in this one. That was exciting. And I just thought it was so clever and fun, and I would love to maybe see the museum return again. Like, can we get some other sort of cursed object up in there? I don't know. I think that would be fun. At number 4, I'm going to put Universal Monsters Bloodlines. Unfortunately, this was another one I only did once because this was the house I missed out on our first night at the event. Man, I loved this one. I always love these Universal Monster houses. I hope they never stop doing them. I hope that for the next however many years, I don't care. Just bring us the monsters in some way. It's always just an amazing, fun time. I liked the storyline behind this one. It was really neat to see like the relative of Van Helsing on a mission. The sets were astonishing in this one. The acting was so intense. They were in your face. And I have to say, my parents are, they're older, so they're not gonna run through a house. They are not going to quick walk through a house. And I'm surprised we actually didn't get told to like speed up more. I think maybe one time they asked us to like keep up. And I even said like, I can't leave my parents. Like this is as fast as they can walk. And it wasn't causing a problem for people, but we were moving through at slightly a slower pace than everybody else would be. And I ended up walking ahead of them because I was walking too fast. I ended up in several rooms of this house all by myself. And at one point the she-wolf was like attacking me and I'm like, where's my family? I don't like wolves. But that was kind of a fun, unique experience for this to end up like alone in a room. This was one that my dad really loved. He will not settle on a number 1 house, but this might be it. He keeps talking about this one. He really liked this one a lot. Because he's a huge fan of the classic monsters as well, and I think he really liked the set pieces and the intensity of this one also. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I don't care who wins. I just hope both sides have fun. Coming in at number 3, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Maybe I mentioned this when we had the first Ghostbusters house, but I am a huge Ghostbusters fan. I have seen the original movie so many times, and it doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. When you see that glimpse of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man's big stupid face between the buildings walking through New York City, I lose it every single time. It is still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I love the original movie, and I really enjoyed the 2 newer ones. So I had seen Afterlife, and my husband and I did watch that one leading up to Horror Nights, but we didn't actually see Frozen Empire until the day after we came back from our trip down there. I had heard some not so great things about that movie, and I usually don't let opinions like that sway me either way from watching a movie. I like to make my own opinion about things. But I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was cute, and it was a really clever concept. There was a line in that movie that made me laugh for like, I swear, 10 minutes. I kept thinking about it and laughing again. But anyway, the house was such a good like representation of what the movie was. Like the sets, I'm kind of glad we did the house first and then watched the movie literally the next night, because we were watching it like, we've been there. I love the little mini puffs so much. My husband thinks they're creepy, but I love them so much. Seeing them in this house brought me so much joy. The stilt work in this one was amazing. Now, I do have to agree with my husband on one thing. I did not find this house scary, and that's fine. A lot of the times I really do love the ones that I just walk through with a smile on my face the whole time, and this was definitely one of them. I smiled so hard the whole time in this house. But he said, why are they using characters that we like from movies as scares? And that's fair. Like if somebody jumps out and it's like, oh yeah, I know you, you're cool, I'm not going to get scared. But I don't think this one was supposed to be super terrifying anyway. I think this was just kind of a love letter to the fans of Ghostbusters, myself included. And I toyed with this one. I went back and forth. I'm like, this could have been number one. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow I'll feel like it's my number one, but I have to officially put it right here at number 3. Now, my mom did say that this was her favorite house, so it is number 1 in her heart. This was the first one I took my parents in, and I just don't think anything could dethrone that for her afterwards. But I loved that. I thought this would be a good starter house for them this year. And you know what? I would love to see Ghostbusters at the event again someday. Number 2, Slaughter Cinema 2. I was so excited for this one. I really was. I am a huge fan of the original Slaughter Cinema, and I purposefully did not look up any of the movie titles before I went into this house. And I'm glad I didn't, because the way that I about died when we saw Mummy Strippers Unwrapped, I will never forget that moment. My husband and I were like, oh my God, we were laughing and just walking into it like, oh, this is everything. This is so perfect. This was a definite worthy successor of the original Slaughter Cinema. It was great to walk back around the corner and see the big movie screen and the drive-in, to walk back through the concession stand. This is another one that I just smiled the whole time. Now, I must say, this one was almost my number 1, and I really, really love it. This was a tough battle this year. I think I had to demote this one to my second place spot, because after my first night, this was number 1 for me. But I had to demote it because in the Mardi Gras room, that horrible man that was puking on people, I had been through this house. I knew he was going to do it. But I was kind of trying to turn to my parents to say, watch out. And my mouth was open and the water effect went in my mouth. So I didn't love that. But other than that, I thought it was a real fun time. I want them to just keep making Slaughter Cinemas, please. Can we just have a house based on every single Slaughter Cinema movie, and then also just keep making Slaughter Cinema houses? I'd be such a happy camper if that happened. So that just leaves us with one house left. My number 1 house this year, we've got to give it to Goblin's Feast, which was another one of my most anticipated. This was my husband's most anticipated. From the second that we heard the description of this house, okay, this is going to be something special. And the minute you walked into that tavern and there was the one dancing leading you in, and then things took a dark turn, this was just from top to bottom amazing. It was funny. There were some scares. There was one point when I was going through with my parents that 3 goblins were surrounding me, and I was kind of cowering down don't eat me. So that was really fun. The sets in this were amazing. The giant hand, absolutely loved that. The water wheel in there. My mom and I kept talking about the water wheel. And while my dad really did love this house, it was one of his tops, I said, I think the water wheel set it over the edge. She goes, well, what was special about the water wheel? I mean, I saw it. I thought it was cool, but does that make it your number 1 house? So I thought that was kind of funny that he's like, well, that's a silly reason to put it at first. But that's not the only reason. Just everything came together so well. The giant goblin at the end with the table laid for the feast. And then the guy at the end saying that the food was escaping. I don't know. It's just one of those perfect Horror Nights originals that I think is going to be remembered for a long time. Is there sequel potential to this? I hope so. Maybe we could go back to this Goblin Village at some other point. I would really like that, because this was phenomenal. I really did love this house. Everybody that I went with loved this house. I think this ended up being mine, my husband's, and then my two of my friends that went. I'll have to look. I'll post those lists on my Instagram too, just to kind of compare what everybody else's list looked like. But I think Goblins statistically kind of took it for us this year. So there you go. There is my very, very difficult rankings of Halloween Horror Nights 33. This was such a fun year. I'm glad I got to go back for 2 nights this year after last year only doing 1. I'm glad I was in a position where I was able to do that. I can't even express how happy this made me to get to share this with all of the most important people in my life this year. And I'm definitely looking forward to next year. Of course, we've already had rumblings, we've already had rumors. I know it's too early to kind of buy into all of that yet, but it is exciting to think about what might be coming next year. In the meantime, I'll still be around here posting about any horror things, horror book reviews, things like that. You can also follow me on Instagram at HHN Carson. I post some things over there, just kind of the fun, spooky things that I'm up to or travel things. And in the meantime, I hope everybody has a wonderful fall, winter, and I will see you guys soon.